Night in Colorado doesn't fall, it sinks. It pools in the valleys, climbs the pines, and settles over the mountains like a shadow that remembers every disappearance, every echo, every unanswered question left behind in the thin air. Out here, silence has weight. Roads stretch for miles without witnesses. Rivers move without revealing what they've taken. And some stories linger the way cold does in high altitude. Quiet, precise, impossible to escape. Because in Colorado, the strange doesn't hide, it waits. Lock your doors. Put on your headphones. Because after this video, you'll never see Colorado the same way again. The Vanishing of Kaylee Russell. Kaylee Russell was 20 years old when she left her job on a cold November evening and drove toward home along the dim, flat roads that cut through Timnath. She texted a friend, played music from her usual playlist, and then, without any warning, her digital trail faded. No calls, no messages, no camera sightings, just silence stretching across the Colorado plains. Her family reported her missing almost immediately. Kaylee was responsible, predictable, the kind of person who never vanished without reason. Deputies searched the roads she normally took, scanning ditches, fields, irrigation channels. Hours passed, then days. Helicopters traced narrow loops over farmland, while friends retraced her routes with flashlights and hope. But nothing, not a piece of clothing, not a skid mark, not a sign of departure, suggested where she had gone. Then came the discovery. In early December, a driver noticed something unusual in a canal near Weld County. The faint outline of a submerged vehicle barely visible beneath the winter glare. When authorities pulled it out, the plates confirmed what the family feared. It was Kaylee's car, windows intact, no obvious damage, headlights off, and inside, according to investigators, a body matching her description. But the questions began immediately. The canal where the car was found sat far off her normal route, requiring multiple turns through rural roads she had no reason to travel. Visibility near the water is limited, but not so limited that someone would simply drift into it by accident. Tire marks were faint, inconsistent, as if the vehicle had entered slowly or been guided. There were no signs of braking, no frantic correction of the wheel, just a smooth descent into the dark water. Worse, investigators could not determine the exact time the car entered the canal. The cold water preserved the vehicle, but washed away clues. Kaylee's phone wasn't recovered. Neither were several items she normally carried. For a few hours, the public wondered if she had driven in deliberately, but those who knew her dismissed that instantly. She had plans, commitments, excitement about upcoming holidays. No message hinted at distress. The silence deepened when family members reported an eerie detail. Kaylee's car had passed through areas with traffic cameras, yet no footage captured its movement. Either the angles missed her completely, or she took a path so isolated that she avoided every lens. Deputies called it coincidence. Her family called it impossible. Then there was the canal itself. Locals noted that the slope is shallow enough that cars often become stuck before fully entering the water. But Kaylee's vehicle was found several yards in, as if pulled or pushed with unusual steadiness. Divers reported minimal sediment disturbance. It went in cleaner than it should have, one rescue worker remarked. The autopsy did not provide closure. Cold water obscured the timeline. Cause of death? Undetermined. Not accident, not homicide, just a gap where truth should be. And so the case sits, fresh, raw, unanswered. A 20-year-old woman drives into the night and vanishes. Her car appears days later, in a canal she never traveled near. Her final movements simply stop. But water doesn't hide everything forever, and what it returns is rarely the whole story. The unsettling deaths near Rocky Mountain trailheads. The trailheads of Rocky Mountain National Park are supposed to be predictable places, wide gravel paths, map boards, parking lots where hikers lace their boots and breathe in the thin, bright air. But in the last 2 years, something has shifted. Too many disappearances. Too many bodies found in places that defy geography, weather, and logic. The mountains have always been dangerous, but not like this. In early 2024, a seasoned hiker vanished while walking a familiar trail near Bear Lake. Search teams swept the area within hours. Helicopters combed ridgelines. Drones scanned ravines. The terrain was tricky, but not impossible. A week later, his body was discovered on a ledge that had already been checked twice. The position looked deliberate. Arms at his sides, face turned toward the valley. A ranger quietly noted that the marks on the soil suggested he hadn't fallen. He had been placed. Months later, another case rattled the community. A woman disappeared during a morning hike near Glacier Gorge. Her backpack was found neatly propped against a boulder, as if someone had set it down with care. The ground around it was undisturbed. No footprints, no drag patterns, nothing indicating where she'd gone next. Days into the search, her body finally appeared downstream, in a pool of water so shallow and calm that rescuers initially thought it was a mannequin. Investigators called it an accident. Locals called it impossible. In both cases, weather reports revealed something strange: sudden atmospheric disruptions, unexpected wind gusts, temperature drops, bursts of pressure that didn't match regional forecasts. Hikers in the area recalled hearing deep, distant booms that echoed across ridges with no visible source. One group said the forest felt charged, like static before a storm. Then came the most perplexing case of late 2025. A trail runner vanished mid-route while wearing a GPS watch. The device recorded smooth, steady progress until it didn't. One moment he was moving uphill. The next, the signal froze, then resumed from a point nearly half a mile away on a cliff band with no trail access. When search teams finally recovered his body, it was found below that same cliff. Investigators struggled to explain how he reached the upper ledge without climbing gear, and why none of the rocks showed fresh markings. What tied the cases together wasn't just proximity, it was the pattern of discovery. Bodies appearing in places already searched, weather anomalies aligning with vanishings, personal belongings arranged rather than scattered, and most unsettling of all, the silence. No distress calls, no signs of struggle, no final messages from any of the victims. Veteran rescuers whispered that these recoveries felt wrong. Some refused to speak on camera, saying only that the mountains were behaving unpredictably. One ranger, off the record, described it this way: "It's like the landscape is rearranging itself after we turn our backs." For the families, the explanations don't hold. They read the reports, revisit the maps, study the terrain. They see the gaps clearly, gaps so wide that the truth seems lost in the altitude. And with each new case, hikers tread a little more carefully, pausing at tree lines longer than before, listening to the wind with an unease that wasn't there years ago. Because in the Rockies, the danger is no longer just the cliffs or the cold or the thin air. It's the way the mountains keep returning people to places they shouldn't be. And when the mountains rearrange the story, they rarely leave the ending where we expect it. The teen in the river, a discovery too close to the starting point. On a warm spring afternoon in Boulder County, a 17-year-old left home to take photos near Boulder Creek. He told his parents he wouldn't be long. His last text, sent minutes later, was a simple picture of the water, calm, silver, almost perfectly still. What happened after that turned a routine walk into one of the county's most baffling open cases. When he didn't return home, search teams mobilized quickly. Boulder Creek is predictable, shallow in many places, fast in others, but rarely dangerous along the popular access points. Deputies found his car parked neatly near the trailhead. Keys inside, door unlocked. No sign of a fall, a struggle, or sudden distress. The trail dust around the vehicle was undisturbed, as if he had stepped out and simply vanished into the trees. Then searchers found something strange: footprints. They followed them along the creek for almost 300 meters. The pattern was steady, deliberate, not frantic. The teen walked right along the edge of the water, close enough that his shoes touched the wet sand. And then, abruptly, the footprints stopped. Not faded, not washed away, stopped, as if he had stepped off the earth. Dogs were brought in. They followed the scent up to the same point, and lost it completely. No track up the slope, no track into the water, no track continuing down the trail. It simply ended in a place where endings don't make sense. Over the next 2 days, divers searched every pocket of the creek. Helicopters scanned the banks. The family waited by the trailhead, watching teams come and go with empty hands. A few hikers reported hearing something odd the night before, a single splash, then total silence, but no one saw anything, and the water remained too calm to explain a fall. 5 days later, the boy's body surfaced, less than 100 yards from where the footprints ended. A place divers had checked repeatedly, a place that had been declared clear. The creek was shallow there, barely waist-high, with visibility good enough to see the rocks beneath. But during the earlier searches, that spot held nothing. The condition of the body deepened the mystery. He showed signs of drowning, but no visible trauma, no snags on clothing, no marks suggesting he fought the current. His phone wasn't found. His camera wasn't found. The only clue was that photo he had taken before everything went dark, the water impossibly still, like glass stretched over a secret. Investigators tried to recreate the path. If he slipped, he should have been carried downstream farther than where he was found. If he waded in, footprints should have shown a departure into the creek. If he intentionally entered the water, the scent trail should have reflected that. None of the variables aligned. A veteran search and rescue member stated privately that The body showed up where it shouldn't, when it shouldn't, in a way that doesn't match the flow. Another simply said, "We searched that exact spot. He wasn't there." Boulder Creek now carries an uneasy reputation. Not dangerous, not cursed, just confusing. A place where timelines break. A place where evidence refuses to stay still. A place where water sometimes gives back only part of the truth. His family still brings flowers to the edge of the creek. They say the hardest part is not understanding the final moments. The footprints are what haunt them most. How they ended so sharply, like the world cut off mid-sentence. Because when a river returns someone too close to where they vanished, the real story may still be hiding beneath the surface. The suitcase in Reno, a body with no story. Reno, Denver's art district, is a place built on color, murals, neon signs, sculpted alleyways humming with late-night bars and quiet studios. But on a cold morning in early 2020, that brightness cracked. A maintenance worker found a suitcase abandoned near a graffiti-covered underpass. It looked ordinary at first, black, scuffed, worn from travel. But when he tried to move it, the weight was wrong. Too dense, too heavy, too still. Inside was a human torso. No head, no arms, no legs. Just a body with no story. The discovery rattled Denver. Surveillance cameras in the area faced the wrong angles, obscured by street art and shadows. Footage captured a blurry figure dragging the suitcase before disappearing into an alley, but the resolution was too poor to identify a face, gender, or even a clear gait. Detectives traced the victim through fingerprints, identifying him as a man with no known enemies, no criminal record, and no recent conflicts. His last movements were unremarkable: a grocery purchase, a walk through his neighborhood, then nothing. The case stalled. Leads fizzled. Then in 2024, forensic technology advanced enough to revisit old evidence. The suitcase, stored for years, was retested. Trace fibers suggested it had been in more than one location: an apartment, a storage facility, and possibly a vehicle, but not enough cohesion to tie it to any suspect. DNA found on the zipper belonged to multiple people, none of them viable leads. Denver police quietly admitted the profile was too contaminated to narrow. Despite the early dead ends, something strange happened as the case resurfaced. Similar suitcases were reported in other parts of the city. 3 calls in 2 months. All false alarms, trash, clothing, abandoned belongings, but each one triggered the same fear. Citizens filmed them, posted them, speculated wildly. Reno became a place where people stopped when they saw luggage, staring too long, waiting for a reason to call the police. Then came the detail that deepened the mystery. A group of urban explorers reviewing old security feeds claimed the suitcase had appeared in the frame suddenly, without the dragging motion visible in the earlier footage, as if a moment in the recording had been overwritten or skipped. Investigators denied tampering, but couldn't explain the abrupt transition. The glitch fed theories: a corrupted file, a missing frame, or something far more intentional. In 2025, detectives reopened the inquiry with new digital forensics. They reanalyzed street cameras, focusing on reflections in windows, chrome surfaces, puddles, anywhere a hidden angle might reveal the person behind the suitcase. Some reflections suggested the figure paused several times, looking back over their shoulder. Others hinted the suitcase might have been placed carefully, not abandoned in haste. But the most disturbing revelation came from the medical examiner. The torso showed no signs of defensive wounds, no struggle, no prolonged trauma. It was as if the victim never had a chance or never saw the threat coming. To this day, the case stands with no motive, no suspect, no timeline. Just a suitcase left in an art district known for expression, turned into a canvas of silence. Reno continues its nightly pulse. Bars glow, murals shift in streetlight, but beneath the color lies a story Denver never finished writing. Because a suitcase left in the open is easy to find, the truth packed inside it is not. Lights over Pueblo, the soundless sky phenomenon. For years, residents of Pueblo have looked up at the night sky and seen something they cannot explain. Not stars, not aircraft, not the familiar sweep of satellites crossing overhead. The lights appear without sound, clusters of white, red, or amber that drift in formation, stop abruptly or vanish as if swallowed by the darkness. Some nights it's only 1 or 2. Other nights, dozens of people across the city report the same silent choreography. The earliest widely documented incident came in 2019, when a group of families gathered near Lake Pueblo for a late summer barbecue. Just after 9, a string of lights glided across the sky, too low for commercial planes, too slow for satellites, too steady for drones. A few witnesses filmed them, capturing the eerie stillness, No wind movement, no engine hum, no blinking navigation patterns. The video spread online, attracting skeptics and believers alike. But Pueblo wasn't finished. Over the next several years, the sightings continued. Sometimes the lights hovered over the steel mill district, sometimes along the Arkansas River, sometimes beyond the city's edge where farmland meets open desert. Witness statements carried the same unsettling detail: absolute silence. Even animals behaved strangely. Dogs barked at empty skies. Horses in nearby stables paced nervously. One rancher claimed his cattle pressed against the far fence as the lights drifted above the ridge. Then came the unexplained booms. Beginning around 2022, Pueblo residents reported sudden, deep explosive sounds that rattled windows and set off car alarms without any visible source. No aircraft, no construction blasts, no weather events that could account for them. The Air Force denied sonic booms. Local industry ruled out plant malfunctions. Yet people across multiple neighborhoods heard the same vibration rolling through the ground. In 2024, one incident gained particular attention. A police officer on overnight patrol recorded a cluster of lights moving in an arc above the city. The dashcam captured them freezing in place, 3 perfect points suspended in a triangle. Moments later, a low-frequency tremor rolled through the area, strong enough for the officer to comment on it. The lights blinked out instantly after the tremor. Officials offered no explanation. Meteorologists attempted to link the events to atmospheric inversions or distant explosions carried by unusual pressure layers, but those theories failed when witnesses described synchronized movement in the sky, patterns too deliberate to be natural. Amateur astronomers ruled out satellites, flares, and Starlink trains. The behavior didn't match any known object. Drone experts noted that large coordinated drones would produce a noticeable hum, but Pueblo's lights remained completely silent. Residents began tracking the sightings themselves. A community database formed: timestamps, GPS coordinates, sky conditions. Patterns emerged. The lights tended to appear on calm nights with minimal cloud cover. Temperature drops often occurred minutes before a sighting, and the unexplained booms frequently followed within an hour. Some theories proposed experimental aircraft from nearby military sites. Others leaned towards seismic anomalies. A few whispered something stranger. The most chilling incident occurred in early 2025. Multiple witnesses near the outskirts of Pueblo reported a large, faintly glowing shape descending behind a distant ridge. It wasn't fast. It wasn't bright. It simply lowered itself until the glow faded behind the land. No aircraft was scheduled. No radar recorded anything unusual. The following morning, campers in the area reported feeling a pressure in the air that made their ears ring. Today, Pueblo sits beneath 2 skies, the one everyone sees and the one people whisper about. Sightings continue, quiet but consistent, slipping into the night before anyone can gather proper evidence. It remains one of Colorado's most persistent, unexplained phenomena, too frequent to ignore, too elusive to categorize. Because when the sky moves without sound, something else might be listening. The Unidentified Man of Park County. Winter in Park County arrives without mercy. Snow folds over the valleys, wind drags across the pines, and the land grows quiet in a way that makes even locals uneasy. On a bitter December morning in 2025, that silence was broken when a hunter spotted something out of place near a frozen embankment. A shape lying half covered in frost, still as stone. When deputies arrived, they found the body of a man in his 30s or 40s. No identification, no phone, no wallet, no vehicle nearby. Not even footprints leading toward or away from him. Just a single human form resting in the snow, as if dropped gently from above. The nearest road was nearly a mile away. The terrain between offered deep drifts and steep inclines, impossible to cross without leaving a trail. Yet the snow was untouched. The man wore winter clothing, but lightly. Layers inconsistent with someone planning to spend time outdoors. His jacket was zipped halfway, pockets empty except for a few coins and a single torn scrap of paper too weathered to decipher. An autopsy later confirmed no gunshot wounds, no knife wounds, no signs of assault, but hypothermia, the obvious explanation, didn't fit neatly either. His core temperature and physical condition suggested he hadn't been exposed long enough to freeze. Something about the timeline simply wouldn't align. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation released his composite image to the public, hoping someone might recognize him. No one did. They checked missing persons databases across multiple states. No match. They checked fingerprint records, immigration logs, old arrest files. Still nothing. It was as if the man had lived entirely off-grid or had been erased. Investigators re-examined the scene repeatedly. Snowfall patterns suggested the body had appeared during a short window of time when visibility was poor and winds were high. But even in harsh weather, a person walking into that area should have left some trace. Drag marks, crushed grass beneath the powder, broken crust along the upper layers of snow. Instead, the ground around him looked undisturbed, like fresh canvas. Then came the oddest detail. His boots were spotless. No mud, no ice packed in the treads, no sign he had walked anywhere. When detectives tested the soles, they found particles consistent with indoor flooring, microfibers, dust, and rubber fragments. Nothing from the surrounding terrain. It was as though he stepped out of a building and directly into the mountains, skipping the distance between. Quiet speculation began among deputies. Was he transported there? Abandoned, dropped from a vehicle? But if so, where were the tire tracks? Why was there no indentation near the body? And why would someone leave a man in the snow with no identification, not even a trace of who he once was? As winter deepened, the case grew colder in more ways than one. Months passed without leads. The man's fingerprints, DNA, and dental records remained unmatched across national systems. The torn scrap of paper dissolved before meaningful analysis could be done. Park County residents began calling him simply the unknown, a presence now woven into the quiet lore of the region. His body was buried in an unmarked grave with a temporary stone. Investigators still visit occasionally, leaving notes or updates, even if there are none. One deputy said the case lingers with him because it feels incomplete, like a sentence missing its final word. The mountains hold many things: storms, shadows, secrets carried by the wind. This man has become one of them. And some mysteries don't stay cold. They wait for someone willing to keep asking. 6 stories scattered across the mountains, rivers, and quiet stretches of Colorado. 6 moments where reality slipped, where tracks ended too early, where answers surfaced in the wrong places, where the sky moved without sound, and where the dead arrived without a path to follow. These aren't just unsolved cases, they are fractures in the ordinary, reminders that even familiar landscapes can hold impossible shadows. Colorado breathes differently when you look at it this way. The mountains feel older, the water feels deeper, and the silence feels like it's listening. If you made it this far, thank you. If one of these stories stayed with you, let it echo for a moment before the world pulls you back to daylight. Leave a like if you felt the weight of these unanswered questions. Tell us which mystery unsettled you the most and where we should look next. But remember, some places aren't forgotten. They're waiting,